Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. We're here to talk about our favorite subject. That's right, blockchain. But more importantly, what is that missing link between blockchain as an infrastructure, becoming a part of the technology stack within enterprises, or a part of enterprise applications? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that missing link and maybe a little bit about decentralized applications, or dApps, and also the role DeFi, decentralized finance, is playing in these futures. We might even talk a little bit about NFTs, non-fungible tokens, as well. But before we get started, big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria and Hasmik for making today's episode possible. Make sure to check us out on LATOKEN.com for more from today's speakers and all speakers of the VCTV family. With that, again, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and introduce today's guest. David, welcome back to the show. A little intro, a little background.
Hey, Kyle. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you again. Sorry. And to the rest of the audience, thank you again for having me. I am David Tawil. I am president of ProChain Capital. ProChain Capital is a crypto-focused hedge fund focused on investing and trading in tokens, cryptocurrencies, equities of publicly traded companies that are focused in the industry, and smaller venture type of investments as well.
Wonderful. Welcome to the show, David. TCM, pleasure to have you. A little introduction and background for everybody, please.
Hi. I'm the founder and managing director at Chiratae Ventures, an early stage tech VC firm based in India. We typically invest across consumer tech, fintech, SaaS, and is our interest in the blockchain because I think enterprise is going to be a huge play for blockchain. Less excited about crypto. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, welcome. We're happy to have you. And last but not least, MME, ladies and gentlemen, has joined us today. Mark, welcome back to the show. A little intro for background for everybody.
Kyle, it's such a pleasure to be here. Yes, I'm in the enterprise software business forever. I joined HP in the 90s, then long time with Microsoft, running a consulting business since 2010. All around enterprise software in the blockchain space since about 2014, I think. I am a member of the Alliance of Angels and a couple of other funds. I'm on the board of a couple of funds and companies in this space, both crypto as well as traditional blockchain, or no, that's where crypto actually comes from. And I'm also running an investor group called Codex 3. Together with a couple of friends, we're making joint investment decisions in the crypto and blockchain space. I apologize in advance. Comcast seems to have some trouble with the internet. So if I disappear, it's not personal. It's technology. Thank you very much.
No problem. We seem to be having that common occurrence today, or earlier pre-show as well. So with that being said, Mark, just in case you do drop, let's start with you today. Why don't you set the stage for us as to why there is a missing link, or has been a missing link, from the blockchain side of technology and infrastructure to being integrated within enterprises on a global scale. I'll let you kick it off for us.
Sure, glad to. I think there is no simple answer, I think. When you think about blockchains, on one side, and it was invented for Bitcoin, it's very public, the transactions are very public, it's auditable. All the benefits blockchain technology, public blockchain technology brings, come with challenges for enterprises. If enterprises are trying to use blockchain technology, at least the public available one originally, they're running into issues of speed, cost of transactions, the amount of transactions they can book through. So there was a lot of effort in realizing blockchain technology itself, trust, auditability can bring a lot of, and especially combining separate systems can bring a lot of advantages. But again, public blockchains were just not ready for prime time for large enterprises. So there was a lot of innovation happening on private implementations. There was private Ethereum forks there where smart contracts were built on. Of course, we all know Hyperledger. A lot of IBM pushed this very, very hard, I think, since 2018 or 17 or 18 at least. But nevertheless, I think the forward-thinking people, even in the enterprises, recognize that the midterm and long-term innovation is going to happen on public blockchains. And I think what really excites me today is what's happening in the industry. I mean, companies like Microsoft, E&Y, and a lot of other companies are looking into that space and saying, how do we merge the benefits of public blockchain, the trust, the global ability to keep all of these things together in a decentralized and reliable way? How do we combine that with the needs of an enterprise for privacy, for very consistent and predictable cost models? And I think I'm really excited to see what's happening. And I think the next 5-10 years will bring a lot more advantages of the blockchain technology into the enterprises. And when you talk to the big players, E&Y, Microsoft, and so on today, their customers have hundreds and hundreds of those implementations already in there. And I'll stop with that.
Thank you very much. David, thoughts? I see you unmuted there.
Yeah, I frankly don't have a lot to add on the point made, but I will say, my greatest concern is that the private side or the centralized, let's say, focus of blockchain usage becomes paramount, and the decentralization does not. And to me, we'd be missing the whole point, frankly, of the capability and capacity of decentralized activity. And certainly there was, I think, a release earlier today about the fact that Goldman Sachs is using some of JP Morgan's proprietary privatized blockchain capabilities, and that's just leasing software to other people, which I don't think is the point of the quote unquote revolution. I think that in this revolution, contrast with the revolution of the internet, where we digitized information and services, my hope is that there will truly be decentralization when it comes to use of the blockchain and keeping of ledgers of various types of assets. And so hopefully the biggest players, those with the most money, won't necessarily form a lobby that essentially blocks out everybody else and shifts away from decentralization.
It's a very, very, very good point. I think that we're all starting to see concern further on. And TCM, I'd like to come to you next. Anything to add on to Mark or David's point around enterprise and blockchain?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that we have noticed is that enterprises are quite intrigued by what blockchain can do. But at the same time, this is looking like there's a lot of misinformation about blockchain implementation being expensive. And also there is a whole thing about the technology understanding and in terms of skill gap that is there. The way I look at it is, first of all, while this decentralized ledgers and information, it has to be implemented by large ecosystems, where multiple ecosystem partners, between a supplier and the buyer, or the lender who's coming part of supply chain finance. In such large ecosystems, it has to get implemented first before somebody can say that it can be much more easily done in a larger base. I think for that, one of the key challenges is that skill gap and also information gap has to be bridged. One of the things that we have done, we made an investment in a company which is looking at providing blockchain as a service, which means they will provide it literally like a black box where people can push in the information and then they will get the blocks and information on the other side, so that otherwise it becomes a challenge for all the enterprise IT teams to say who will develop it, how will it maintain over a period of time, because you will have a very small teams that will be managing this. So I think blockchain as a service will be one way in which this can become much more widely used. Especially they'll be driven by ecosystem owners, right? The large corporates who have either big supply chain or big distribution chains where they would like to do it, or consumer facing side, where provenance and origins can be tracked. This can be done by the leading corporates initiating.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things to add on there too is just data privacy, right? I mean, that's one thing I think is a big concern for enterprises, how data is or will be handled in some way, shape, or form. I mean, we do have some of those enterprise blockchains that Mark had mentioned, along with the public blockchains, but we're starting to see some pieces of that puzzle get solved where institutions are working together in consortiums to build their own protocols off of a public blockchain in some way, shape, or form, or forking and creating a side chain as well. I mean, with JPM, as mentioned, we have Onyx, their new blockchain division, and also their new blockchain that they're working with, I think, 100 and some odd banks and financial institutions around the world. So we're starting to see this, but for whatever reason, it still seems to be slow in terms of adoption into the applications. Now, Mark, you've been in the enterprise space for a while. Do you think that this is because enterprises are still looking to see the proof points of technology to make sure that it's worth the added cost and investment to do so? Or is it just not yet up to speed for them to start integrating at all levels of decentralized applications or dApps stack, as mentioned as well? Or does it just go back to public and private?
I think it's actually a total misconception. I have been in the enterprise IT industry for nearly 30 years. And I can say I have not seen anything as fast moving as blockchain technology in the enterprise. Not even the move to cloud computing in the early 20s, or in the last 15 years. But if you are coming from a startup environment, if you're used, I think, for fast technology adoption of the last 5 or 10 years in smaller organizations, it feels like a glacier-like move. Just to give the younger people here a little bit of an example, I think in the early 2000s, large IT corporations, they basically did 1 or maybe 2 major IT projects in a year. So that was things like upgrading the email client or upgrading the ERP system, and that was it. That's what a company could do. Large organizations have been moving much, much faster over the last decade, of course. And again, cloud computing and decentralized technologies in general playing a key role there. Now, specifically with blockchain, I've been hosting the conversations at the BPI FinTech Ideas Festival in 2017. So that's the CEOs of the largest financial institutions getting together. And the topic of blockchain was very hardly driven by IBM, by Ginny, the CEO at that time, was on stage. Satya represented Microsoft. Most of the banks and most of the insurance companies were basically just starting to have their head around it. That's 4 years ago. 2 years later, 2019, the same group of people got together. And by then, Wells Fargo alone had over 800 projects that are using distributed ledger technology already. So they were well ahead. They understood this technology is going revolutionizing business processes, and they're trying to embrace it very, very quickly. Has it changed everything? Absolutely not. Have the companies learned where they can use it? Yes, I think a lot of smart companies are getting there. They realize that, of course, a centralized database, it's much faster. But the moment you have multiple organizations that need to collaborate and exchange data in a trusted way, blockchain technology can be a key technology piece that makes these kind of things happening and much, much faster. We're looking at British Petroleum as an example, building a transport solution with the insurance companies, the carriers, and so on blockchain technology. You're looking at voting system, you're looking at identity system, you're looking at financial exchange systems. All of these things, I think, are happening. And then, in addition to the traditional industry, we all know, we have a completely new financial system developing within the last 18 months, the DeFi system. There's a completely new financial system created out of nothing in parallel to what's already there. and bring huge opportunity for, I would say, 80% of the population that do not have access to traditional finance systems today. So I'm very excited about what's happening. And while I wish things were happening much faster, I think compared in the glacial speed that we have seen over the last decade, this is actually happening quite fast.
Agreed. And DeFi was my next question and topic. Don't unmute yet. I'm coming right back to you. DeFi. And then David, I see David's ready to start unmuting right now. So DeFi, this is something that will take the enterprise of all industries by storm. Decentralized finance. Where are you seeing some of the areas of opportunity or investment opportunities for DeFi and decentralized finance within enterprise? And then David, I know you want to comment further on that. So Mark, to you first, where are you seeing the opportunities for investment as an investor in the DeFi to enterprise spot?
Well, I mean, as an investor, I think we're looking at just even as yield. I mean, you look at what do you do with cash today, and you basically get 0% you pay in most countries, even that you keep your money on the bank. And on the other hand, even in stable coins, you get 8, 9, 10, 11%. So that's a very clear decision, I think, for more and more people, even if they don't think about crypto or the crypto world in general. So I think the squeezing out the margins between lending and borrowing, I think there's a huge opportunity to start there. For traditional, and I think traditional finance industries, they start to wake up and they see that. Even governments, we had conversations with some government leadership over the last year. I think they are starting to see what's possible there. And of course, they're scared and they're trying to figure out how to deal with it. So we will see a lot of turmoil, I think, over the next 2 years in that space for sure. But yeah, and again, traditional companies, I don't think they're not fully embracing it yet. I mean, there are some examples. I mean, like MicroStrategy, of course, they start to push the Bitcoin wagon, the technology high. But most corporate people in corporate America, or even corporate worldwide, they're not even starting to thinking about it. So if we're people that are deep in DeFi, we see all this innovation, the vast majority of the world hasn't even started to realize what's happening.
I couldn't agree more. But David, this is your time slot, so go for it. Tell us what your thoughts are.
So I'd like to make a little bit of a clearer distinction from Mark, and I'm curious if Mark concurs or disagrees. I see two flavors of DeFi. Flavor one, which I prefer, is really bringing the service of banking to people that do not have that service, or have that service at an incredibly high cost monetarily or otherwise. To me, I think that that's where the substance is. I think that's where the opportunity is. I also think that that's where the fastest growth is, frankly, because there are almost no other alternatives. What DeFi, I'm scared, has become in the developed world is either leverage on assets at a slightly cheaper rate, or leverage on assets that you can't otherwise get leverage on, like cryptocurrencies, or some spewing about using big data to go ahead and essentially do banking services cheaper or better. I was actually on a call this morning about an investment bank here in the United States that in one sentence said, they're going to go ahead and take over kind of the middle market of investment banking from Jefferies and Cantor Fitzgerald, and then at the same time said, and by the way, we're going to compete with the likes of JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, I forget which other bulge bracket banks they named, over a period of time. And they feel like they've built a great infrastructure on technology, and now they're going to go out there and use acquisition capital to buy teams of people and essentially be able to reduce headcount because they're relying on what they think is superior technology. And to me, I don't know. I'm not a believer, in all that. I much prefer the former model, and certainly it's only applicable in certain places in the world, as opposed to the latter, which I think is, trying to pick up pennies in front of a, freight train potentially.
Interesting. Okay. So, all right, with that, TCM, any thoughts to add on to Mark or David's point?
Yeah. In fact, what we were discussing in DeFi, you see what figure is done in mortgage lending, right? Actually, one single mortgage can be refinanced and very quickly, and that is going to actually disrupt in a big way, and it can happen to one single invoice getting factored by an individual, and like Mark said, the yields on other modes of debt side is actually literally near zero. So people are actually looking at saying that how can I participate in, and blockchain is going to be able to provide the provenance for taking the risk against people whom they actually do not know, the underlying asset which they have not seen. I think they will significantly disrupt business.
Thank you very much, TCM. It looks like we're having some connection issues on your side. So being conscious of time, I do want to come around for closing thoughts as to where you see things going for enterprise and blockchain, and maybe even mention of authentication and identity. We didn't get a chance to talk much about DID or decentralized identity, but that does play a major role in a lot of the enterprise applications that I have been seeing or working in terms of conversations with other enterprises as well. But Mark, why don't you close us out with your big closing thoughts as to where you see the industry moving towards blockchain into enterprise, how identity may play a role, and then of course, where can you be found online?
Sure, happy to do that. So let's start with the last one, so I don't forget. I can be found on Twitter at Mark M. Eberstein. At Mark M. Eberstein on Twitter. That's the easiest way to find me. And yes, I'm open for private messages there as well, especially for cool investment opportunities. So where do we go? Will blockchains technology replace all databases? Absolutely not. So existing databases are fast, efficient, can make take care of huge amount of data. So that's going to stay. Where blockchains are coming in is facilitating collaboration between organizations and individuals. It's really unlocking the trust collaborations for completely new constellations of collaboration, both on the industrial side, on the financial side, supply chains, even bringing all different pieces together between, again, supply chains, insurance, all of these things coming together. I think there's huge potential that is going to happen there. I think we touched briefly on DeFi and said, yep, there is lots happening there that might create a completely new industry in parallel. Similar, I think, for identity. I think we will see identity not only of individuals, but also of entities and devices will leverage blockchain technology as one potential key to really make it possible to act in a global environment with provable identity. I think there's a lot of exciting work happening there. And again, I can't wait to see where this is all going in the next 5 or 10 years.
Let's definitely have some fun with it. David, to you.
Yeah. I can be found on Twitter at David D. Tawil. Also can be found easily on LinkedIn as well. In terms of closing thoughts, I just want to emphasize or re-emphasize the point of centralization versus decentralization. I think it's really important. And the other thing is, I'm sorry, I will also mention blockchain is not the answer to every problem. I think it's important to understand that, and I think people that are thinking about implementing it are also, certainly suggested to them that they keep in mind that, it's not necessarily going to, solve all the problems, and frankly, it might not be the best solution in many cases, what already exists may be, a better solution, and maybe just tinkering with the existing application will be better than applying blockchain.
Thank you, David. TCM.
Yeah, so I can be found on Twitter and TCM Sundaram, and also on LinkedIn. And my mail ID is tcmsundaram@chiratae.com. To quickly close some closing thoughts, I believe there's a huge potential. A few years ago, a lot of people used to try to solve every problem, saying that blockchain will solve it. Now I think there is a certain amount of dissonance that has come, saying that actually there are certain problems that will be solved much efficiently by blockchain, while others is like trying to use a hammer to start a flag. I think that clarity having come in, now enterprises will need to collaborate to do this. So in India, there is all banks gotten together to now use blockchain for letters of credit. That is a project which started 2 years ago, but it's like to go live this year. This space is what actually is hampering quicker adoption, and that I think is something that will speed up over time. But I agree with Mark saying that enterprises are used to do multi-year projects. To that, actually, it may look like sometimes very slow in the world. And I think blockchain as a service could possibly help many of the enterprises to start using it in a much more idiot-proof way.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, TCM, David, Mark. Appreciate all the thoughts and insights on the missing link between enterprise and blockchain. To our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please make sure to like, subscribe, share today's episode, and check out the archive on LATOKEN.com to hear from today's speakers and all speakers of the VCTV family. As mentioned, we'd all love to hear from you, especially if you're working in the areas of enterprise and blockchain, DeFi, dApps, and non-fungible tokens, anything in between, and much, much more. Please do reach out to each and every one of us, as we would love to connect and continue the conversation. But please do add context when you do, where you heard us, where you met us, what you would like to continue that conversation about. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. We'll be back here tomorrow with more VCTV. Until then, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria and Hasmik for making today's episode possible. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.